If I bashed Honor a few weeks ago for the 6C Pro, well, actually this time I'm gonna praise Huawei. This is the Mate 10 Lite, and I actually love it. While everyone is going for the Honor 7X, which is practically the same phone as this one with a slight design difference on the back, I went for the Mate 10 Lite from Huawei that was announced a while back in October. I personally like this design more, but that just might be me. So yeah, starting off with the design, I actually love it. Huawei did a great job with their designs in the last years, and this is no exception. We have a beautiful design with metal backs and sides and a glass front, which is a great combination, although the back is a fingerprint magnet, especially in this black finish. Altogether it looks and feels pretty premium, and I like that. We have the SIM/microSD card slot on the left and the power button and volume keys on the right side. On the bottom we have a headphone jack, I'm glad to see that, but what I'm not glad to see is the micro USB port. At this point and at this price I don't understand how it still doesn't have USB-C, but anyways. On the back we have a dual camera setup that I will talk about later, an LED flash, and the fingerprint sensor, which again, as with the Honor, is incredibly fast. You just touch it and you're in. I love it. And it comes with all the features that I talked about in the 6C Pro's review, like swiping down to pull notifications and so on. Finally, on the front we have the earpiece, a dual front-facing camera system with the LED flash that again I will talk about later, the Huawei logo on a relatively small chin on the bottom, and the display. Now let's talk about that display. I love it. We have a 5.9 inches IPS LCD display with a resolution of 1080 by 2160 and a pixel density of 409 ppi with the 18:9 aspect ratio, and all that translates into a very good display. It's not the best, obviously, but it's a very good one. Of all the trends with the removal of the headphone jack, the dual camera systems, and now going with the so-called bezel displays, I have to say this is the one I like the most. And I particularly like the approach that Huawei took here. I've seen lots of bezel-less phones out there that are just ugly, but this is not the case here. It's very elegant and nicely done. The display itself is very good. The resolution is good, the colors are great, the viewing angles are very good as well. Honestly, I haven't seen a display this good in a while. I enjoyed every bit of it. With the 18:9 aspect ratio you just have more screen, and I appreciate the fact that the software gives you the chance to use the full display on some apps that aren't optimized yet for this kind of displays. Although it warns you that some apps might crash, and I experienced that with some apps, I still appreciate the fact that I can try. With media consumption I have to say that this is a mix of love and hate, and that's because the major part of content is shot in 16:9 aspect ratio, especially on YouTube, so you get those black bars on the side, and as this is an IPS display and not an AMOLED, they can be really annoying sometimes. Although the YouTube app allows you to zoom in a bit on a video in order to remove the black bars, but that's not always a good solution as it cuts off part of the frame. But of course, for a good media consumption experience you need both a good display and a good speaker. And when it comes to the speaker, well, it's okay. It's not mind-blowing, I don't know. The speaker is the part where Huawei never surprised me, and it didn't do it here either. It's not bad, unlike the Honor 6C Pro, but it's not very good either. It is really loud and doesn't sound that bad. It has much high-end and mids, but very little low-end, which is a combination that I don't like, but anyways. Going to the creating side of media, as I said, we have a dual camera system on the back formed by a 16 megapixel camera and a 2 megapixel one. And the results, I have to say, really surprised me. This is the first phone I tested after the Galaxy S8 that I feel comfortable taking photos with. It's not as good as the S8, but it's also less than half the price, so come on. And for the price, it's amazing. I just enjoy taking photos with it. The exposure is good, the colors are great, the dynamic range is awesome, and it has plenty of detail, although I do have to say that it tends to over sharpen a bit. But I mean, the results are just a pleasure to see. It just takes good photos, pretty much ready to share on social media. And the fact that I can even shoot in RAW is even more amazing. You can take your social media post to a whole other level. But it's not all roses and unicorns. The portrait mode on this device is a hit or miss thing. It's nowhere near perfect, but it sometimes manages to take a good enough shot, although that doesn't happen very often. And when it comes to video recording, it only shoots at 1080p, which is pretty much unacceptable these days. device, especially at this price. And it's not like it's the best 1080p video out there. It lacks image stabilization, and I personally would like a flatter color profile when it comes to video, which is not present here. Going to the front-facing camera system, we have a 13 megapixel sensor with an f2.0 aperture and a 2 megapixel one that work together in the same way as the camera system on the back. It uses the secondary sensor for depth information and a little punch in detail, and the results are pretty much similar here. It gets some very good shots with great color, great detail, although this one tends to overexpose a bit, and the portrait mode works in the same way. It tends to blur the edges in a very artificial way, but all in all it can take some really good selfies, and the whole camera experience was really pleasing. Moving on to the main hardware of this device, we have the Kirin 659 octa-core processor, thank god, that has 4 cores running at 2.36 GHz and the other 4 running at 1.7 GHz. We have the Mate T830 MP2 graphics, 4 GB of RAM and 64 GB of internal storage, expandable via microSD. And honestly, I don't have much to complain here. The hardware is pretty well chosen, and those 4 GB of RAM and 64 GB of storage really help to the lifetime of this device, but the graphic power leaves a bit of room for improvement. Software wise, again, is a mix of love and hate. We have EMUI 5.1, which is Huawei skin put on top of Android 7.0. I mean, come on, Android 8.0 was released in August and you're not even giving me 7.1. Step up your game, Huawei. And the story of love and hate goes on with the software. As I said in the Honor 60 Pro's review, I dislike the way it looks altogether, but at the same time I like some of its features that I mentioned earlier, like the ability to use the full screen on some apps that aren't optimized yet, and the fingerprint sensor gestures. So yeah, for me a skin solves the main problem. Because when it comes to performance, again, I honestly don't have much to complain here. It performs very well. In day-to-day tasks I didn't have any problem, multitasking was great, and even multi-window was too. I didn't experience any lag like I did with the Honor 60 Pro despite having the same software, so that confirms my deduction that the hardware decision on that one was a mistake. I've tested this device for a little more than 3 weeks now and I didn't experience any problem with it, and quite the contrary, I actually loved every minute of testing this phone. Gaming is where I would have liked to see more graphical power from this device. It works fine on most games, but it lowers the details in the most demanding ones in order to not lag. I'm not much of a mobile gamer, so it doesn't affect me that much, but it's just something to keep in mind if you're into that. All in all, performance in general was great. When it comes to the battery life, I had a pretty positive experience too. We have a 3340 mAh battery inside that delivers a pretty good battery life. I never had any problem getting to the end of the day, although I did so with about 10 to 15% sometimes, so keep that in mind. It's not the best battery life I experienced, but it was good enough for me. When you do need to charge it, the phone is capable of quick charging, and it charges about 60% in 1 hour and fully in about 2.5 hours. So that was my experience with the Huawei Mate 10 Lite, and I say it again and again, I loved every single day of testing this phone. It has a very beautiful design with a great display, a great camera and an amazing performance. Okay, so let's get to the price, and here is where it gets weird. So this is pretty much the exact same phone as the Honor 7X with some slight design differences, but internally they are pretty much the same with the same software and everything. I got the Mate 10 Lite for around 300 euros here in Spain, and I couldn't understand why there were so many reviews of the Honor 7X out there while there were pretty much none of this phone, when they're priced pretty much the same here in Spain, and after all Huawei is the mother company. But then I looked it up and it turns out that in the USA the Mate 10 Lite is priced at about $450 while the Honor 7X is priced at about $200, which is crazy and I don't understand it. So here in Spain and in Europe in general they are priced at about $300 each, while in the USA the Mate 10 Lite is way overpriced while the 7X does the exact opposite. I personally don't get it, but if you do or you have an opinion, please leave it in the comments and I'll be glad to read it. So is it worth it? At about $300 here in Spain, I would say that it's a great option in this premium budget section. If you live in the US and you can get the Honor 7X for around $200, I would even say that it's a no-brainer. But if they're priced the same, then I would go with the Mate 10 Lite because I like the design more and I think the front-facing camera is better. But anyways, I hope you liked this video and that you found it useful, and if you did, please give a like and subscribe to this channel as I post a new video every week, and that way you won't miss any of them. I thank you guys so much for helping me reach 40 subscribers. I very much appreciate it, and I don't know, but I have a feeling that will grow a lot this year. I thank you for watching guys, and I'll see you next time. Take care.